Well, hello, Forest Meadow, and welcome back to our sermon reflections. And as we dove into the parable of the talents on Sunday, there is really just one major thing that I am reflecting on, and I would invite you guys to come and to join me in this. I am reflecting on why exactly the wicked, lazy, and fearful slave was unfaithful. Now, I think I should define those terms or at least point to them. The master referred to him as the wicked slave and the lazy slave for not even trying, and the slave confessed that he was afraid, he was fearful. And now we may be tempted to just say that the reason the slave did not utilize or invest the master's money is because he was wicked, because he was lazy, because he was fearful. And these would be okay answers. They're not false, but I do think that perhaps they miss the point. I think his laziness seems to be rooted in his fear, and both his wicked behavior and his fear, they seem to be rooted in a poor understanding of his master. And as we said on Sunday, this man took one very small sliver of what he knew of his master, and he attributed this as the whole. He had kind of an oversimplified view of who the master was, what the master was doing, and what the master wanted. And he did this because he barely knew the master. He had kind of in his mind this caricature of the master with very exaggerated features and very little accurate details. The little that he knew of his master, I think, was true, but he saw such a small portion of the whole. And I guess what I'm trying to point out is the fact that because he knew his master so little, he trusted his master so little. And yes, it is true that God is exacting, but God is also exceedingly gracious. And this slave could not possibly take into account part of his master that he didn't know. In other words, the slave's lack of faithfulness, I think, can be attributed to his scarce knowledge of the master. Now, let's be fair about this, okay? Is it possible for the slave to know more of the master, to know him more fully, and still despise him? Well, yes, I think that this is possible. That it is possible to see, to know the goodness of God, and still to reject him in pursuit of sin, as Hebrews 6 kind of points out. But in this parable, I don't think this is the case. While it is true that we can possess a whole lot of factual and cerebral knowledge about God and still reject him, it is abundantly clear from this passage that we cannot love a God that we do not know. And we must know God to the greatest extent that we can, remembering that we will never really be able to fully wrap our arms around his infinite person. But we should nevertheless try. We should try with all of our God-given capacity to know him more. And we should agree with Paul's prayer, which begins in Ephesians 3:16. Paul prays, he says, that God would grant to you, according to the riches of his glory, to be strengthened with power through his Spirit in the inner man, so that Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith, and that you, being rooted and grounded in love, may be able to comprehend with all the saints what is the breadth and length and height and depth, and to know the love of Christ which surpasses knowledge, that you may be filled up to all the fullness of God. We have to remember and take into account all that we know of God, not part, but not only his justice, but also his mercy, not only his wrath, but his kindness, not only his exacting nature, but also his provision. Remember, God is not some of these things, he is all of these things. So let me read to you something that may be an encouragement to wrestle with the person of God, with the attempt to try to know him deeper. Okay? Here's the quote. Now, there is a delightful and rightful place for confessing our inability to comprehend the incomprehensible God. As Paul relates in Romans 11:33, which cries, "Oh, the depth of riches, both of the wisdom and knowledge of God! How unsearchable are his judgments and unfathomable his ways." The state of all mysteries lead to this special place of awe, wonder, and worship. And although we maintain this place of awe and worship, regardless of our obscure understanding of God's nature, we should not run too quickly to the state of surrender to his infinite incomprehensibility. Doing this would be akin to a miner who will not mine because of the rock which lies before him. And although he may own the land, he does not possess the ore which lies behind the rock, and hence cannot revel in the lavish riches which remain unseen. Hence we should not run too quickly to this state of surrender to his infinite incomprehensibility without first wrestling and grappling with the fullness of revelation spanning the pages of Scripture. Like Jacob, whose very name was changed and was permanently wounded when he wrestled with God, we have not really known or learned anything until we have been irreversibly changed by struggling with the person of God. For it is here that his name and hence his identity were changed. Further, it was the permanent injury was inflicted by the Lord as Jacob wrestled with the person of God. Even so, it is when we have wrestled, toiled, and labored, seemingly to no avail, to the point of losing all identity, strength, and even youthful stride, that we finally surrender, not only in cerebral context, but in exhausted experience. It is here that our place of worship is deepened, for we have known in our collapse that we cannot, in our current state, grasp the uncontainable, infinite, and unchanging God. End quote. This is a helpful thing for us to meditate on, that we should seek to know God, even though we cannot wrap our arms fully around him. Well, brothers and sisters, let's go ahead and move on to our questions for the week. Our first question is this: why does God give us abilities, and what does he expect? And what do you expect when you give a gift? Number 2, do you think the slaves knew what was expected of them and why? Number 3, why was the master gone for so long? Number 4, why did he give them different amounts of money? It's a very valuable question, one that I've really wrestled with. I'm not sure I know the answer. Number 5, what exactly was the master testing in this case? Number 6, why did the wicked slave get anything if the master knew his shortcomings? Consider also Judas being one of the 12. Number 7, what did the wicked slave lack, and why did he not even put the money in the bank? What was his mindset? Number 8, why did the wicked slave make the accusations against the master? Number 9, what determined success or failure? And finally, number 10, what would this test reveal in us, in our lives? And how do we need to change in light of this? Well, brothers and sisters, that's about all the time we have for today. But just as a quick teaser, this upcoming week we're going to be looking at Judgment Day, when the Lord separates the sheep from the goats. And so we're also going to be getting a missions update from our missions team that just came back, led by John Shadid. They came back from Mexico, and so we hope you take the time to join us. Well, thank you guys so much for taking the time to join us already today, and thank you for your desire to dig deeper into the Scriptures, and I hope you have a great day.